Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. So a very good evening, everyone, and especially all the students who are going to appear for this year mains. I wish them all the very best, and I really hope that all of them. ठीक है अभी? I really hope that all of them give their best shot this year, and we did not really want any student to feel anxious at this point of time with the given load of information that we have these days, which is quite accessible, and accessibility to information has actually become uh, a problem for the a major problem for the students nowadays. But despite all those things, we really wanted to keep things short and help students understand some of the important issues which are really significant for this year's mains. And instead of talking about those issues in detail, I thought I should simply talk about those issues in very brief manner, and I'll also share with you uh, a small handout which I have made on those issues. The issues that we are going to discuss today would be: first, subcategorization as a process which has been in news since quite a long time now. Second issue that we will be discussing would be demand for reservation by some of the dominant castes. Okay. The castes which are usually theoretically or academically seen as dominant castes. And definitely we will also discuss caste census, and all, since all these three issues are very much connected to each other, a question on one or the other may come this year's in this year's paper, either in GS or socio, or the things that we may discuss here may help you in essay also. I mean, we don't know where exactly is it going to help you, but definitely the explanation can also act as an example for you to answer some of the question from some other area, okay, which we will definitely understand by the time this discussion ends. So to begin with, first we are going to start with caste census. I hope it's visible to you. Just let me know if the font and text, everything is visible to you, so that I can work around on font size or zoom in or zoom out accordingly. Fine. So बहुत basic, let us first understand the very basics of caste census. Okay. um, the little bit of history of caste census. 1881 to 1931, for these many decades caste census was conducted, and obviously it was conducted by colonials. And when, for these many decades, 1881 to 1831, when census was conducted, all the castes were enumerated in the census. That means no specific caste group was enumerated, but even the caste which we usually call as upper caste were also enumerated in the caste census till 1931. Fine. In 1941, there was a gap. That is why it is not mentioned here. 1941, there was no caste census, and you know, when 1881 to 1931 census was organized, many sociologists or anthropologists came out with a very interesting observation. The observation that when enumerator goes to the villages and ask people about their caste, and when people come to know that colonials are going to come to us to ask our caste or to rank us, which they thought colonials would be doing to them, all of them used to mobilize, and they used to form associations, that when census commissioners would come to us, we would say we are Kshatriyas. Okay, because they always feared that colonials are coming to rank them, and they did not want to be seen as low rank. That is why they used to form association and used to claim high caste status. And this is what Srinivas has also observed, that census for very long time acted as instrument of social mobility. From 1881 to 1931, and even for the years afterwards, census actually was an instrument of social mobility. Many castes, specifically low caste, which we call as low caste today, used to assemble together, form associations, and claim high caste status, that they belong to this dynasty or this lineage. Okay, and enumerators had no choice but to simply register them without verifying if, and because these things can't be really verified. Okay, so anyway, and Yogendra Singh writes in his book that since this was an unintended consequence of caste census, later on, it was realized that caste census should not be continued anymore. 1941, there was no caste census because people were using it to elevate their status. Okay, but anyway, 1941, another reason for us to not have census was World War. Okay, that was also going on, and although data was collected, but it was not published. Later on, 1951, what did government do? Independent Government of India. Independent Government of India decided that from now onwards, 51 onwards, census would be conducted to enumerate only and only SCs and STs. So that means all the castes which were enumerated till 51, that whole category of caste was excluded. Only exception was created for SC, ST. They will be calculated. And what do we usually enumerate in caste census? We simply try to understand which caste has how much of number and which caste is represented to what extent in education, in bureaucracy, in politics, in positions of power, and what is the income position, what is the lifestyle of those community. This is what we usually uh, understand through caste census. Okay, and 51 onwards focus was only on SCs and STs, and this continued. And in 2011 also, as we know, the last census that we have officially was 2011, and 2021 was supposed to be the next round of census. As we know, it is conducted every 10 years, but it could not be conducted in 2021 due to administrative issues, and specifically it was COVID year also, so many things happened. Anyway, now where are the OBCs? Are they not computed? In 1961, central government had clearly notified to the state governments that you are free to conduct local census at your own level to compute OBCs, or what we call as backward classes. Okay, but at national level, only SCs and STs were computed and their lifestyle was computed. Okay, so this is the historical fact. This is the historical data about caste census. Now let us understand why caste census today is important. And for this, um, I have referred multiple articles, and some of the articles were quite repetitive, uh, but there were few articles which I really believed had summarized the major functions of caste census, as to why caste census should be conducted today. And some of the article were written by Professor Satish Deshpande, who's very uh, great and eminent sociologist from Delhi School of Economics. Now, why caste census? Caste census today should be conducted because caste is still an important marker of your identity, believe it or not. Our life chances, that means our opportunities, what do we get in life, what occupations we pursue, who should we marry or who we marry, or what we call as our worldview, our belief system is shaped very much by caste till date. And this is what Professor Satish Deshpande is also mentioning. He's saying caste defines life chances till date. How? In many villages, you will see residential segregation still exists according to castes. Marriage, we know, according to the last data of 2011 that we have, it says only 5% marriages are intercaste. 95% are still within the caste. That means caste still holds relevance when it comes to marriage. Third, winnability in election clearly signifies importance of caste. And fourth, occupation. You will be surprised to know that caste does play a role in occupation till date. And for this, we have multiple data also to corroborate the same point. Uh, Andre Bete says, basically in his article, Peculiar Tenacity of Caste, he says that When you compare lower level occupation in India, for example, manual scavenging, and when you compare it with the topmost level occupation, for example, professors and bureaucrats, or lawyers and doctors, or engineers, you would find that in the upper level occupations, it is over representation of upper caste, and in the lowermost occupation, it is extreme overrepresentation of lower caste, which means that at the extreme poles, upper caste and lower caste are very much visible in the uppermost occupation and lowermost occupation. In the middle regions, which is the middle level occupation, not associated with very high status, high income, high power, but in those middle positions, you would see what we call as an irregularity. It is not a continuum, it is not a very solid or rigid caste class nexus which is visible at the extreme ends. So that means we see change in the middle, but we see continuity at the extreme of upper and lower. So this is what Andre Bete is trying to say, and even Satish Deshpande sir is also saying the same, that most of the people you would find, their occupations are defined by caste networks. I remember in Delhi, whenever I ride auto wala, whenever I ride to any place through auto rickshaw, most of the times, invariably, I come across people, specifically when I'm booking through Uber. Okay, so I know the name of the Uber driver. I know the name of Swiggy or Zomato people also, because we are booking, and then we understand what is the name of those delivery agents, because that is what we come across on our apps. So we come to know that most of the people are coming from same community. So that means community does play a role in inviting those people all the way from village to Delhi and serve and and give them company in this occupation. So no, most occupations are network driven, and this creates intersection between caste and class. Caste does provide a sense of belongingness till date, and since caste is important, it is playing a role, and therefore caste census must be conducted because caste does define your life chances. Second point that he says is caste census can help us visualize the inequalities existing between social elites and lower caste. So we can understand the unequal distribution of resources if we go by caste census route. Third, it will help us identify extreme backwards. Extreme backwards among whom? Extreme backwards among the backwards. So there is this, a debate that we often talk about, the real OBCs among the OBCs, the backward among the backwards, or we often hear about Dalits within Dalits. Okay. Um, Now, who are the Dalits within Dalits, or who are the backward among the backwards? We can't understand this until we collect data on this. And caste census will help us collect data on these things, which means caste census can help us identify extreme backwards among the backwards and thereby exclude the forward among the backwards, which in a way is going to help us rationalize the so-called distribution of reservation benefits. So all in all, it also is helping us to design social policies and to make our affirmative action policy more specific, more targeted. Social justice can't be met without caste census. So this is the basic, very basic argument as to why caste census should be conducted. Now, let us understand what are the unintended consequences of caste census. What could happen and why it is often protested against by some of the people. Whether it is right or wrong, we will not be going into those details. We will just simply understand what are the unintended consequences that people often express may take place or may happen due to caste census. First, they believe census can lead to emergence of caste associations and caste-based vote bank politics. Like, this is one argument, as I told you in the very beginning. M.N. Srinivas always had this fear, or I would say M.N. Srinivas always had this observation in his mind that whenever census takes place, there is a movement taking place at the village level among a caste group, mobilizing together and claiming higher status, solidifying the caste association, or making horizontal solidarity even more strong. Caste patriotism to invoke Ghurye's term, caste patriotism becomes very strong. People start becoming more loyalist or affiliated to their caste during caste census operations. So it may lead to Fissiparis tendencies, division. Okay, the whole integrated Indian society may start feeling disintegrated. This is what critics often argue. Okay, second, uh, caste census may also lead to social movements. So, like for example, G.S. Ghurye observed that in 1931, when caste census was conducted, it was found out, as I told you, that till 1931, in caste census, all the castes were enumerated, including upper caste. So, Ghurye noticed that in 1931, when upper castes overrepresentation was found and published in the Gazetteer of India, lower caste, which we call as non-Brahmins, protested against this overrepresentation of Brahmins, and that is how non-Brahmin movement developed in Indian society for the first time. And that is how, then we know about the idea of Justice Party coming in, and all the sorts of unequal distribution between Brahmin, non-Brahmin. So this actually leads to development of a movement, and of course, it is not just about movement to make space for themselves and exclude Brahmins, but it could also be a movement to claim lower status. As we see today, most of the communities are claiming lower status in ritual hierarchy so that they could get higher status in secular hierarchy. Okay, and this could be also an unintended consequence of caste census. Okay, this is not why it is designed. Third, uh, homogenizes the heterogeneous castes under one umbrella. So this is what Veena Das used to say, that what happens is, when caste enumerators, when census enumerators means those people who are going to go to villages and ask people their caste, um, as first step to collect data on caste. Okay, when they go to villages or regions, uh, those enumerators somehow club many castes under one umbrella term. For example, um, like Iravati Karve always used to talk about caste clusters. In Maharashtra, there are many Brahmins. Okay, Chitpavan Brahmins are there, Saraswat Brahmins are there, Somin Brahmins are there. But to club all of them under one tag called Brahmin would be injustice to the very idea of collecting data on specific community. So basically, like for example, even in Punjab, there are many SCs or Dalits. Valmikis are there, Mazhabis are there, Ravidasiyas are there, Ramdasiyas are there. But if we simply uh, call all of them SCs, okay, so basically we are trying to kill the heterogeneous differences between those communities. Okay, which Dipankar Gupta also says amounts to be called as discrete caste. There are differences between each community. Okay, so Veena Das had this apprehension about unintended consequence of caste census. Now, what are the challenges in conducting caste census? So far, if you have any doubt, you may ask me before I proceed. Okay, I hope it was clear to you what I'm trying to say. In case you have any sort of doubt, you can ask me. And till then we can proceed further. I'll just keep checking the questions that you are having. Challenges in caste census. Uh, this is very well documented by Professor A.M. Shah in his article from EPW. Way back in 90s, he had written about challenges in caste census, how reliable caste census is. And trust me, the challenges that he noted way back in 90s and early 2000 are very much relevant till date. Those challenges are actually the real challenges and actually presents to us the case which government of India is also dealing with. Government of India is also facing the same challenges, and they are not able to collect proper data on the caste census. And AM Shah had clearly highlighted this. Now, starting with first challenges that he is talking about, he's saying linguistic variation is there. Okay, now linguistic variation, he's trying to say that most of the residents, when you, as enumerator, when you go to village, when you ask someone their caste, sometimes villagers get confused, what are you asking, because caste is very English term, okay, and enumerators don't know the local terms that people often use in their life, in their region, in their community. So sometimes respondents, the people who are telling their caste names, get confused, and they confuse their caste name with varna. Sometimes they say they are kshatriyas or brahmins. They don't talk about specific caste, they simply use a broader group name, cluster name, okay. Sometimes they use gotra, sometimes they use surname, sometimes they use tribe name, sometimes they use lineage, sometimes they use race. So AM Shah clearly highlighted this fact that jati is such a broad term, anything can be included in jati. So much so that we often talk about Musalman jat, Hindu jat, Shia jat, Sunni jat, Oraon jat, Marad jat, Aurat jat, okay. Let alone Brahmin jat or Dalit jat, and let alone Chitpavan Brahmin or Saraswat Brahmin jat, okay, and let alone the Gotra name. So anything can be included. So it may get very confusing, okay, for the enumerators. So this is linguistic variation, language issues, okay. Second is regional variation. It is often found out that when people migrate to different pockets, they use different name, okay, because they have achieved mobility in that area, in the urban area. Now they don't want to be seen as belonging to the same caste which was an agricultural caste, so they often change their caste name, or they often use a different identity to be seen as mainstream urbanite and not to be seen as ruralite or agricultural caste, okay. So this, and when you keep changing your caste name, and this is something that FG Bailey also observed in his study of Bisipara, that if you keep changing your caste name, it is difficult for enumerator to locate your caste. Third is caste segmentation. This is also one issue. Caste segmentation means that it is very much related to the second point only, however, not about migration per se. Caste segmentation simply says, or simply clearly shows, that you, for example, could be, if you are from Delhi, okay, your identity is Delhi wala, fine. If you are from New Rajendra Nagar, your identity is New Rajendra Nagar wala, okay. If you are from specific block in New Rajendra Nagar, then your identity would be that. But eventually, you have multiple identities. You have Indian identity, Delhi identity, New Rajendra Nagar identity, and some block identity in New Rajendra Nagar. Okay. Similarly, a specific community can have multiple caste identities. Okay. A community can be called Brahmin in political context. When non-Brahmins are against them, then they unite. Then these people unite and call themselves as Brahmin alone. But when there is no non-Brahmin movement against them, then they are not calling themselves only as Brahmins. Then they split into Smartha Brahmin, Shri Vaishnava Brahmin. Doctrinal differences are there. Okay. So in the political context, they are Brahmins. In non-political, they could be Smartha, Shri Vaishnava. And further, in occupational context, in marital context, they would go further into details, which Smartha, which Shri Vaishnava, something like this. So there are segments within each caste, and therefore the name of caste will differ according to the segment or the context. And this is something that Andre Bete had also observed in his study of Tanjore village, okay, Shripuram. Now fourth is claim for a lower or higher status. Yes, this is also something that is very well observed. Srinivas had observed this, and we observe this today also. However, when Srinivas observed people claiming higher status when census is conducted, um, that is far away from what we see today. Today people are claiming lower status, okay. Some of the communities which were upper caste or which had claimed upper caste are now claiming tribal statuses today. Rajbanshi is one case. Retribalization as a process is taking place. So if community keep changing their status name, high and low, according to context, how do we figure out which caste do they belong to? Next is intra household variation. Again, he highlighted this very important process. There is intra household variation. How? See, what happens is that within the same household, imagine um, a person from A caste is marrying B caste, because today we are living in modern world where people have individual right to marry anyone they like, and it is legally protected also. So you may see A person of A caste marrying B person of B caste. Now, in this household where they are living, if enumerator goes and if he conducts household survey, which caste would he label residing in that household? He would not be able to, because today we are not living in a society where people are marrying within the same caste. So you don't see chances for all household having same caste people. Today you may see all household having different caste people. Imagine person of A community marrying B community. The child would be carrying which caste, A or B? Today it could be A also, B also, according to many judgments. And imagine that C child married someone D from Brazil or America. What would their child be? Eventually caste as an identity would get diluted, and we would experience cosmopolitanism, which means classless castes or casteless castes. Okay, and this is what A.M. Shah is trying to explain in his study. And the next issue is incapacity of census enumerators. So just like there is issue with uh, the respondent, he may get confused which caste should I use here. What is he meaning by caste when the enumerator is asking me? Similarly, enumerator may also lack proper scale or proper training to understand how should he frame questionnaire. Okay, so census enumerators could not distinguish between caste groups, subcaste, surname, gotra, and they also often design a poor open-ended questionnaire, and this makes the whole exercise very confusing even for the respondent, and let alone the enumerator. And technically, how should census be conducted? Bihar government is a good example for this. When recently Bihar government conducted caste census, जो कि होना भी यही चाहिए और होता भी यही है, प्रॉब्लम कब आती है मैं आपको बताऊंगा. When Bihar government conducted census, Bihar government had clearly instructed the enumerators that whenever you go to field to collect data on caste, just collect data on these castes only. Approximately 214 caste, a list of which Bihar government had already prepared. They already knew these are the total caste which exist in Bihar. There cannot be 215 or 16. In case there is, they would be called as others, which would be addressed later on. So if you have a predefined data of 214, 200 something, it is going to help enumerators. But if you don't have data and you want to collect data for the first time, then it can be very challenging. As Government of India clearly says in the last year report that we came across 46 lakh castes in the 2021 census. Okay, that is why we are not publishing it, when in reality in 1881 we had only 1000 to 2000 castes. Today it is 43 lakh. Issue is definitely with the enumerators or with the respondents. Okay, but whatever is the issue, eventually all of them amounts to be called as challenges in the caste census only. Okay, so these are the basic challenges that we have understood. Now let us understand the next topic called as subcategorization. If you have any question from caste census, you're free to drop the same questions in the comment box also. There are students who are live also, but in order to maintain that we have a continued flow of the session first, I would request all of you to just keep dropping the questions. I will definitely be picking up those questions later on. सब कैटेगराइजेशन का मतलब क्या होता है, और आपको ये भी हम समझाएं कि सब कैटेगराइजेशन को डिस्कस भी क्यों किया जाता है. ओके, कास्ट सेंसस जैसा मैंने आपको बताया, एज आई टोल्ड यू, caste census is basically an instrument through which government can collect data on different castes and understand which caste deserves a reservation benefit more which caste does not deserve reservation benefit as much more as the other caste. That means census is going to help rationalize the reservation benefits across castes. That means uh, subcategorization is something where caste census is going to help us a lot. You can't subcategorize people into different blocks, and you can't understand which block should be removed from reservation, which block should be given more importance until we have caste census. So both are helping each other out. There is a give and take relation between both of them. Okay. So subcategorization is basically a division between blocks of castes. Census is going to conduct proper count of those blocks and understand which community is relatively deprived in which sense with respect to which community. Okay. As a process, subcategorization means process of dividing macro group into micro groups. For example, आपने SCs को divide कर दिया into group A, B, C, D SCs hypothetically. Okay. Because it is yet to be divided at national level. Okay. So let us assume group A, B, C, D division between SCs. Okay. Which means if SCs are given 15% quota, so group A would be given this much percent, group B would be given this much, C would be given that much, D would be given something else. Okay, according to their numbers. For example, if Valmiki community within SC are not represented according to their population, so therefore percentage should be reserved for them. And if they are not found in group A positions of government, definitely percentage should be earmarked for them properly. But if we keep seeing some communities from SC to be represented in every sector, be it education or government sector or bureaucracy, then their exclusion should be initiated from reservation because they have had enough. Now is the time for the lower caste among the lower caste to get benefits. So basically, subcategorization means a process of dividing macro group like SC or OBC into micro groups. Justice Rohini is made for OBC subdivision, and Supreme Court has just recently delivered a judgment on SC subdivision. Now, what are the existing issues with reservation? This is also something that we need to understand. Okay, as to why subcategorization is in the first place uh, initiated or suggested. So the major issue is that firstly, 15% quota which is given for SCs remains unfilled. First, this is one issue. Okay, I'm not saying this is why subcategorization should be taking place. We are just understanding the existing issue within reservation first. Reservation of SCs specifically, 15% seats are unfilled. There is no suitable candidate found. This is what usually is told to them. No suitable candidate. Okay. Now, if I simply understand this 15% quota and go into the sector, like for example, education sector, universities, and if I also go into political sector, ministries, I find that SCs who make 15% of population approximately in group C positions of university, they are making 37% of their total proportion, which means 37% of group C positions are represented by SCs, and group A positions, which are creamy positions, in those positions in universities, which means the professor or associate professor positions, you would find 13% SCs. So that means 2% less than quota, and here you can easily find out 22% more than quota in group C. So overrepresented in lower position, underrepresented in upper position. This is the data and analysis. Okay. The source is UGC Annual Report 2023. If I go into the politics, I find the same thing. In ministries, across 10 ministries specifically, it was found out that positions reserved for OBC, SC and ST remained vacant, 50% vacancy in the positions reserved for OBC, SC, ST, which was not the case with general candidates. Okay, so that means uh, this was the issue, and the data was given by Parliamentary Standing Committee of 2023 only. Okay, so these two sectors represent education sector and political sector. Over representation of Dalits in Group C, under in Group A. Politics is also part of mainstream society and uh, upper layer or top level positions. Okay, now if I come to the second issue within reservation, second issue is whosoever has gotten reservation. Okay, even in those people, even among those SCs, only the creamy SCs, according to many judgments, there is a creamy layer within SCs which are overtly represented in most of the sectors of government jobs and education or bureaucracy. So that means there are two issue. आपको ये ध्यान रखना है, बस दो ही issue हैं. पहला, एक तो 15% सीट पूरी भरी ही नहीं गई है. दूसरा, जो भरी गई हैं उसमें जो भरे हैं या जो लोग पाए गए हैं अमंग एससीज, वो है एक क्रीमी एससीज. नॉन क्रीमी एससीज अभी भी अंडर रिप्रेजेंटेड हैं दोनों केसेस में ही. अब एग्जांपल्स क्या हैं? इफ आई टॉक अबाउट region of Andhra and Telangana, there are some groups within SCs called as Malas. They are overrepresented in government jobs. And there is a group called as Madigas. They are also constituting what we call as Dalits. Their numbers are more than Malas, but still, according to their proportion of population, they are not finding representation in government jobs. Okay. So that means even within Dalits, there is dominant Dalit and non-dominant Dalit. Okay. So dominant Dalit subcaste and non-dominant Dalit subcaste. Okay. In Tamil Nadu, for example, there is a community called Parayyar and Pallar within Dalits. They are also getting good benefits of reservation, but community called as Chakliyar and Aruntanayyar, they are excluded from, or they are not getting represented according to their proportion of population. Similarly, in Punjab, Ravidasis are well represented in government jobs or what we call as higher education, but Balmikis and Mazhabis, they are disadvantaged. They are not able to find representation. Now the question is, who is asking for subcategorization in that case, so that those people could find some benefit of reservation, so that government could earmark specific quota within the quota for them? It will be definitely these people, disadvantaged Dalits. They would be asking for subcategorization. Okay, and this is what we have mentioned here, that this group, the dominant Dalit, is well represented in government job, and this group is underrepresented in proportion to their population. Fine. And what is the consequence? The consequence is that we see Dalits are no longer homogeneous class. Rather, we see internal differentiation taking place within Dalits. Some of the Dalits appropriating the benefits to a great extent. Many Dalits getting excluded out of the benefit net. Okay, creating inequality within Dalits. So it is no longer inequality across caste, it is now within caste that we see development of inequality. And this is what we have mentioned here, that we see differential social mobility, rise of Dalit elites. Most of the Dalits who have gained benefits would be called as Dalit elites. And unlike the disadvantaged Dalits who have not taken benefits, we can easily call the whole process as differential mobility. Okay. Second is internal differentiation, creating another hierarchy and caste system. So if you see Dalit elites rising as a consequence of them getting benefits generation by generation at the cost of many other Dalit communities who have not yet gotten benefits, what we see in that case is there is a rise of hierarchy within the Dalit caste. Okay, the example of which could be there is an upper caste among Dalits and then lower caste among Dalits, creating another caste system within Dalits. And if you have studied Michael Moffat, he talks about Brahmins among Dalits, which means relatively pure Dalits, unlike the impure Dalits. Okay. Third is we also see tendency for dual closure. Now, what is dual closure? Um, see, so there is a theory of social closure given by Frank Parkin. He clearly says there are three kinds of social exclusionary closure. One is exclusionary social closure, second is usurpationary social closure, and third is dual closure. What happens is earlier Dalits were excluded from benefits when Brahmins were overrepresented in government jobs way back before India's independence. This was sort of excluding non-Brahmins from the government jobs. Okay. Then comes a movement where Dalits take up benefits of reservation and find themselves represented in government jobs. This was seen as usurpationary closure. Okay. Which means the Dalits or non-Brahmins who were underrepresented are now forging movements, asking for reservation, getting benefits. And third is dual closure, that those Dalits who have already attained benefits are now excluding the same benefits to those Dalits who are now asking for reservation separately. So that means we see a tendency of reproduction of the whole Brahminical idea of maintaining social distance between communities. So that is what we often see, that when Dalits are specifically disadvantaged among Dalits are asking for reservation, many dominant Dalits protest against or assert themselves against their demand for reservation. And this was very much visible during the recent Bharat Bandh also. It was well organized by the dominant Dalit communities among Dalits, not representative enough of the subordinate Dalit communities who are asking for reservation demand. Okay. So now coming to the third issue, which is the dominant caste demand for OBC. So I guess this is very much clear to you, the whole idea of subcategorization and its consequences. I will share the whole detail with you, data with you, and the PDF with you. Okay. Let us understand the dominant caste and their demand for OBC. Firstly, what is dominant caste? It is a concept coined by M.N. Srinivas, right? M.N. Srinivas clearly said, in the book view, dominant caste were Brahmins, but in the field, dominant caste were actually Shudra, specifically Okaligas, okay, the peasant communities, at least in the secular scale. Although in ritual scale, Brahmins still maintained their dominance. But one thing was very clear, Brahmins are no longer dominant even in the field also, just like the way they were dominant in the book. In the field, numbers matter. How many of you are there? Especially in free India, where numbers define who gets power. And since peasant community had higher number, they gained dominance in political positions. And due to land reform, they also gained economic wealth. Fine. From the erstwhile landlords. And definitely, since they had now attained power, wealth, and they had numbers with them, and with these three, they also claimed some higher status. So many of the Okaligas in Karnataka, according to M.N. Srinivas, claimed Kshatriya status, which means once you have achieved mobility in secular scale, you go on to also claim ritual status to legitimize or justify your secular mobility, okay, and complete the dominance. Fine. So those dominant castes are now asking for reservation. And we see that when we see many dominant castes across regions, which M.N. Srinivas also described, although did not visit as a field worker in those areas. the way he did in Karnataka, but he did talk about dominant caste in different regions, like in Haryana, Jat, Gujar, UP, Yadav, Thakurs, okay, Karnataka, Okaligas, Lingayats, Andhra, Reddis, and Kamas. Um, he basically is trying to describe different dominant castes in different regions. But today we see all those dominant castes asking for reservation. Not all of them, but some of them, like Jats, Gujars, okay, and some other communities also. Now the question is, why are they claiming reservation if they were dominant, if they were beneficiary of land reform, if they were well advanced in numbers, and if they also were wealthy due to land reforms? Then why exactly do they want reservation? Reasons are many. All of them are agrarian community, as I told you, peasant communities. Now agricultural activities and the wealth generated by those agricultural activities are in the declining trend now. There is a declining trend in agricultural productivity, more so because of fragmentation of land holding among people who are landholders, and generation by generation there is division of land among people who are forming a family. We don't see that joint household anymore, having members commonly attached to the common property. We see fragmentation taking place individually. So agrarian distress is one reason for them to seek non-farm occupations. Fine. And non-farm occupations are available in the urban areas. So that means they will have to migrate to urban areas. But in the urban areas, they face different sort of challenges. Firstly, the challenge is that since they are not from the urban areas generationally or historically, they lack cultural capital, they lack network, and they lack skills, communication skills also, to find themselves adapted to the urban ecosystem. Then what do they do? Since they lack these capitals or resources to fit themselves in the urban area, they expect the government to give them reservation benefit, because agriculture is not performing good, and in urban area they have to face severe competition which they are not ready to face or may not be well placed enough to face because of the historical injustices or relative advantages to the urbanites historically. Okay, these two combined together make them ask for reservation. This is one of the reason. Third reason is relative deprivation. When they see, when many dominant castes, the peasant community, when they saw that erstwhile Dalits or tribals who were backward to them, that means there was a point of time when peasant communities were seen as high community vis-a-vis Dalits and tribes. Today, when those same peasant communities see that Dalits and tribes who were backward are getting forward due to reservation benefits, this sends a sense of anxiety among the peasant communities. They feel that they are deprived vis-a-vis those people. If those people can claim higher mobility, why can't we? We are to always have been always upper vis-a-vis them. So there is a sense of relative deprivation. The upward mobility of erstwhile low caste creates wave of relative deprivation among them. Reservation will enable them to maintain the same social distance which they used to enjoy with the low caste. Okay. Status inconsistency is also something which troubles them. Status inconsistency is a concept given by Gerard Linsky, जो ये बताते हैं स्टेटस इनकंसिस्टेंसी का मतलब क्या होता है कि आप हो अपर बाय कास्ट बट बाय क्लास आप पुअर रह गए. स्टेटस इनकंसिस्टेंट, कास्ट में ऊपर क्लास में नीचे, समथिंग लाइक दिस, या फिर कास्ट में नीचे क्लास में ऊपर, दोनों स्टेटस इनकंसिस्टेंसी कहलाता है. ओके, अब हुआ ये है दैट पेजेंट कम्युनिटीज यूज्ड टू claim themselves to be kshatriyas, most of the peasants, be it Jat, Gujar, Patidar communities were also at one point of time believed to have been from peasant community. Okay, Reddis, Kamas, Oka Ligas, all of them were agricultural communities. Okay, later on they claimed Kshatriya or Vaishya status. Now they claimed higher status in the ritual status, but secular level in terms of wealth, they had lower position. In terms of education, they were backward vis-a-vis the Dalits and tribals who had gotten benefits of reservation. So this is making their status inconsistent, that by caste Kshatriya or Vaishya, but by class downward. Okay. Fourth is political clout is also one reason for them to claim OBC status, because they know they have numbers. They are well organized. They have great organization strength. They have great charismatic leaders. And the numbers also define the chances for a community to either stay afloat or experience mobility or experience downward mobility. It all depends on numbers. So if they have number, they exercise influence on politics, and this also becomes a reason for them to claim OBC status. Okay. Fourth and last is exclusion and inclusion error. They claim that the real backwards have not yet availed benefits of OBC reservation. Same case with the SC subcategorization as well. Many of the marginalized within marginalized SCs are claiming that they are yet to be represented. Similarly, some of the communities from OBC status, which they are claiming, some of the communities which are from peasant community, they are claiming they are the real OBCs. They have not yet availed the benefits of OBC reservation. Okay. And the forward among backwards have monopolized the resources or cornered the resources according to them. So that is why they want OBC reservation. Okay. So all in all, now these are the factors explained by Professor Suhas Palshikar, and some of the factors which I've mentioned are actually given by Professor Satish Deshpande also and Yogendra Yadav. So I have mainly relied on articles published by Professor Satish Deshpande, Professor Yogendra Yadav, and Professor Suhas Palshikar. And this is the whole summary of the whole debate on these important topics. So with this, I will conclude the session, and I would also advise students not to read a lot of current affair for sociology. Okay, reason is very simple. It is only and only static which is going to help you. The rule is applicable not just to prelims, it is applicable even to sociology. The people who don't have static hold, good hold over static, I have often observed they keep collecting lot of current affair to overcome the um, lack of hold that they have on static. That is not going to help. Your static should be very strong. Current should be only used as cherry. It can't be the base. Base will always be static 90% until the question is explicitly on current affair issue like subcategorization, for which I have already explained enough. One or two issue if I have left out, I will try my best to share the PDF or article on that in the group. The group link can be accessed from the YouTube link. I have a Telegram group where I keep sharing important information about important issues related to sociology and other batch details. You can always go and check out the group and become a member of that, and just understand how many of those articles that are important in the past year also we have already uploaded in the group. And with this, I simply conclude the session. I hope that these pointers will help you recall the things. We don't want to give whole paragraphs. Okay, it is important that we have bit pointers in our head so that we can explain or elucidate everything just with small recall or glimpse of those things. Okay, so with this I conclude. Thank you everyone. Thank you.